they got for us. They're gonna get us some learning.
Okay, so picture yourself. You're at Ford Field on the field, state championship football game. It's fourth down. You're on the 5-yard line, about to score. You're in the huddle getting the play from the quarterback. You play wide receiver. The quarterback tells you the play, but all you can think about is, man, I can't wait to go to the party after the game. Can't wait to see my girlfriend. Can't wait to see my parents, take all the pictures, get the big championship ring. Then, the next thing you know, you're lined up for the play. And you're standing there like, oh crap, what was the play call? I don't remember. The quarterback calls the play, you run the wrong route, they throw an interception, game over, you lose by 2.
Girlfriend leaves you.
Girlfriend leaves you, you don't get the championship ring, there's no party after the game. We're going to teach you how to fix that problem and how to listen better.
It's quite the crew for that.
The importance of listening. Listening plays an important role in academic, professional, and personal contexts. Studies show that those with higher academic achievement tend to be those people that are better listeners. Additionally, employers will tend to look for people with good communication skills, people that are good at listening. They're going to want them on their staff. There are 5 stages to the listening process: receiving, interpreting, recalling, evaluating, and responding. These steps aren't always followed in any specific order. In one conversation, you could get through the steps and bounce back to a different step. It's not always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First is receiving. You take in stimulus through your senses. You might make eye contact with someone and you might read their facial expressions, and this will either catch your attention or not. It will make things easier to take in. Another example is tone and voice. If someone is yelling at you, you are probably going to be listening to them more than if they were talking in a polite tone.
How many ways can you listen, sir?
How many ways?
How many ways can you listen in your life? I'm just asking you. There's no right or wrong
You
answer.
can listen with your eyes, you
Okay.
can listen with your ears. I don't think you can listen with taste.
You walk up and lick somebody. Good luck with that.
You might be able to, I don't know.
Okay. So if somebody walks up and let's say Mason gets out of the locker room and he's got Brute by Fabergé doused all over him. I'm sorry, he would be more with what's the body crap? Axe. And it's 6 feet there before he gets there. Would you listen? Does that give you an interpretation?
Probably. Or if they would smell really bad, you might not want to listen to
Okay.
them.
Let me ask you something else. Anybody up there listen any other way? Audience members? You know I'm looking for something if I'm asking. What are you thinking? Go ahead.
Well, if you're talking and you see someone not acknowledging you and listening to you, I
Okay.
would want to give them.
But
that
you're
back.
seeing and you're hearing, you're noticing the nonverbals. How else can you listen?
Hands on.
It's possible. I thought about the touch thing because there's a game you can play with people, and if, say I move in on Mason and put my hand on his shoulder and he pulls away, I'm listening to, he doesn't want me touching him. There's no relationship there. And I'm sorry how many times I come up from behind and grab him by the shoulders, kind of thing. He doesn't pull away, he's like, sits right there, he goes, don't hurt me. Others will sit there and go, oh, girl, softer, and then I'll like start squeezing and to the point up. So possibility of touch, still not the one I'm looking for. And I'm gonna give you a hint. I truly think this one comes as you get older and you go through experiences. How else can you listen? Alright, let's go through this. I might give you the answer at the end.
Okay, next is interpreting. You're going to take information that you just received and you're going to try to make connections with things you already know or experiences you might have already had. If you don't have any experiences with something, it's going to make it harder to interpret it. That's why when you're learning something you have no experience with, it's going to take you repetition to be able to learn that and remember it later on. If someone's talking to you and your goal isn't to really interpret or take in what they're saying, this step can be skipped in the process, so you won't try to make any connections. It will just kind of go through,
Yep.
just kind of hear it. Recalling. Your memory consists of 4 different storage units: sensory, short-term memory, long-term memory, and your working memory. Your sensory memory isn't really used in communication. it's more for instinctual purposes. You can take in like your whole point of view. You can take all that in at once, but you're not going to be able to retain that for very long.
What's a dish or something somebody in your family has cooked that you can immediately bring the smell back and you can know right now?
My grandma makes garlic spaghetti all
Man.
the time.
Okay, so question. You have a first date, whenever, the girl asks you over, she's going to cook for you, and you walk in and garlic spaghetti hits you in the face. Look, he's already smiling. Why do you know that by listening with that, you've already got a connection with this person? That's crazy. And, you know, it's amazing how that can work. Sensory's huge.
Short-term memory. After you take something in, it's going to go to your short-term memory first. Things in your short-term memory can be retained for around 20 seconds to a minute. So if you make no connection after that, it's going to be forgotten and it will expire.
In other words, probably 98% of your schooling. Anybody want to counter that? Going on? Okay, just checking. If it doesn't connect with you guys, what do you, I mean, why waste the space?
Right.
Let it go.
Next, your long-term memory. If something makes a connection, it's going to get transferred to your long-term memory. And once it's in there, it can be held indefinitely. That can change if you suffer from like a memory disorder, something with like dementia or something. That can affect your long-term memory. But if you're healthy, you will have those in your long-term memory.
That girl got that closed head injury, was on the radio with 104.3 yesterday. She's that 51st dates with Adam Sandler. She wakes up every morning pretty much. She has no short-term, long-term memory. She lives everything in the moment. And if you come in 10 seconds after you say, "My name is Sawyer," she looks at you and, you know, she'll tilt her head like, "Who are you?" I mean, it's sad. There's no cure for it. So it's kind of crazy. Here's my question to you guys. I know I joked about the short-term memory. You know, 98% what you learn in school just goes phew. But every once in a while, and I go back to 7th grade with what Mr. Resler said to me. I can tell you exactly what I was wearing, what he was wearing, what happened, what his voice tone was, and what he said to me in the hallway that day. Is it possible to connect with the information that we give to you as teachers on that level for everything we do? It's scary. What a percent do you think we can hit? I mean, flip it right now with what you guys are talking about. What percent do you think is going to stick with your audience? I'm asking these facetiously. I'm not looking for answers. Just kind of brainstorming with you because it's scary. But those things that stuck with you long term, imagine if you had control over that with everything you taught or said, and people always stopped, the power you'd have. What's working?
Lastly is your working memory. This is used during times of high cognitive demand. So in the middle of a conversation, if you need to be able to take in information and then use it at the same time, this is used instead of waiting for something to get transferred to your long term. Your working memory has the ability to do it faster. So you can take in information and ask a question about what you just took in faster than what it would take for something to get transferred to your long term.
So is this like our impromptus thinking on the cuff? Okay.
Anytime you're thinking, when you're taking tests on things you just learned,
Okay.
a lot of times, most of your learning is used, like you're tested using your working memory
Okay.
most of the time. Lastly is evaluating and responding. You're going to evaluate something that someone says using credibility, worth, and completeness. In terms of credibility, it's just going to be whether you believe that they're being truthful or not. And with completeness, you're going to take what they're saying and compare it to what you already know and see if it lines up. And with worth, you're just going to determine whether you believe what they're saying is good or bad or right or wrong.
Your generation, how heavy duty is credibility? And I'm asking the group first. I mean, does it really seriously matter? I mean, those people that got to go on that field trip, go ahead. I think it's mostly sophomores going to the career thing. Put a beacon on Bliven, or please return to Shepherd if she gets lost.
I mean, I don't see what's that big of a deal because just because you've been in, like, you've had more experience or something doesn't mean you know more than someone else.
Yeah, what if you have a football coach that never played?
Right, that doesn't, I mean, they could still be the smartest guy in the field, though.
Okay.
They could be the smartest guy in the room.
Cahoon. Those of you that run for Cahoon. He runs marathons. He's run in college. He's done everything he does. Doesn't his credibility, before he even opens his mouth, kind of permeate the room? I mean, when you look at it, I mean, it's amazing when it comes down to it. I am when I have to go to PD and I got to listen to somebody that never taught, I can't listen, people. I try. But they're telling us how to connect with you, how to teach you, how to get information to you. How? How? You've never done it. So credibility to me is huge. What else you got?
Lastly is responding. You're going to want to show someone that you were talking to that you were attentive, and that will be verbally and non-verbally. So you could be saying or right in a conversation, and that will show them you're paying attention. Or simply just making eye contact with someone.
But overdoing it. My kids used to have a doctor. Notice I used the past tense verb. Used to. Everything we said, she would be. Yeah, 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 I'm talking to her the whole time, planning how to cut her head off. I'm serious, because are you kidding me? Shut up. So it can be overboard too. The other one is people just stand and stare at you and you talk to them. I was on the phone yesterday with somebody that waited 3 to 4 seconds after everything I said. And I'm like, are you there? And then they wait again. And I'm waiting for the answer. I mean, it's huge time involved with that too, and repetition can drive you insane. Sorry.
Types of listening. There's discriminative listening, which is listening to scan and monitor our surroundings. So, for example, if you're walking your dog at night and you hear something in the woods, you're gonna scan that and you're gonna process if that's a danger to you or not. That's discriminative listening.
What do I do?
Then it goes into your other processing, which is.
No, it doesn't. I just pull my gun out. It's got a light. I shine it towards the noise. I take care of the situation.
Most generally, flight, and you would.
I'm fighting.
Yeah, fight. There's informational listening. This is listening with the goal of comprehending.
Raise your hand if you do a lot of informational listening during the day. Bunch of rebels. So what do you do? Bunch of zoners. Look
This is supposed to be a conversation.
supposed to be. Thank you.
This would be an example of students listening to an informational speech or a teacher teaching.
Read slides, maybe.
Yeah, slides.
Okay.
That you're intrigued on. If you're,
You name me one PowerPoint slide that's ever intrigued you.
this one right
Unless
here.
there was porn on it. Yeah, nice try. Nice try. This one doesn't happen.
There's critical listening. This is listening with the goal of evaluating or a message based on evaluating a message presented verbally. This would be an example of a listener evaluating a message and accepting it, rejecting it, or decides to withhold judgment after listening to it.
I'm critical listening with you right now. I'm just trying to help you. Corrective criticism is what I like to call it. Corrective critiques is what it is. It's not looking to argue with you in what you're doing. But when it comes down to that, critical listening is good, but we don't do enough of it. Too many people look at one side of a coin these days and make a judgment. That's 50%. That's failure in anything you do. Good call on the critical one.
And there's empathetic listening. This is listening to understand or experience what a speaker is thinking or feeling. This is generally one of the hardest listening to do.
Why?
Especially from the speaker standpoint. It's very hard to get the audience to feel what you're trying to say. And it's hard to listen and understand it.
You have to be a part of the audience to pull that off. That's why I speak 99% of the time to educators. I speak their language. I can get empathy out of them like no tomorrow. I get them laughing, crying, feeling angry, everything you go up and down the line. You've got to really pick your audience to be empathetic. An empathetic speaker. How do you reverse that and be an empathetic listener?
Actually, if there's questions asked, actually participate or try and put yourself out there and feel what they're trying to put down.
Yes and no. To me, empathy is, I don't really have anybody in here I've gone with. Somebody comes into me this morning and says to me, I'm really upset because I try to listen and listen empathetically to help them out, let them vent. If they come to me, and my wife will do this, I just need to vent. That's a husband's cue to shut the mouth and listen. You don't offer advice, you listen. But if somebody gets all done and said, what do you think? Okay, two things. better have been listening, and you better be able to tell them something as it comes down to it. So either way, good 4 on that one. Glad you guys picked that out.
An example of that would be a student listening to a speaker that is trying to explain a traumatic experience
Okay.
or a sad experience, happy, so on and so forth. Now there are different types of listening styles, and this is how like they listen to the person. The first one would be people-oriented listeners. These people are concerned about emotional states of others, and with the purpose of offering support. So like you would be, if your wife came to you with a problem, you would be a people-oriented listener because you have the purpose of offering support.
Okay.
Just all depends. And this would be an example of, say, your friend is sad about a relationship and you listen and try to help them in their. Action-oriented listeners is they focus on an action that needs to take place from what is heard, and they try to formulate an organized way to come about that action. An example of this would say a member of student council listens to a problem that is presented from the school or the group, and they try to formulate an action that can fix the problem or help the problem.
You need to be allowed to decorate graduation caps.
Content-oriented listeners listen to complex information and evaluate the message before drawing conclusions. An example of this is, say, you listen to 2 sides of a certain story before you conclude how you feel. So say one friend tells you one thing, and then you want to hear the other side of the story before you conclude how you feel about the actual message. And the last one is time-oriented listeners. These people are more concerned about time limits and timelines than the actual speech and message. So an example of this would be someone is getting a speech from the parents, and instead of actually listening to what they're saying, they just want the parents to get to the point. So
Be sure and say that to your parents too.
Yeah.
Could you just get to the point? Let me know how that works out for you when you do that.
They just want them to get to the point.
Because if I see you on the list up for adoption, I'll know you tried that. Hey, I think there's a negative one missing there. There's a negative one missing there. And it goes with today's across the board, not just millennials. It goes across the board. Does anybody think of, and I know you've heard this quote. Anybody? Know a negative one that could go up there, a listening style? What are you thinking?
Passive?
Nope, not the one I'm looking for, but I've heard that. A lot of people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. They're listening so they can respond to you because they feel a self-worth needs to kind of thing when it comes down to it. It's like there's a lot of times I don't want somebody's response. Just listen for a second. But they're cutting you off, they're offering this, they're offering that, they're offering this, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't ask for that.
We'll get to that.
Okay, I hope I jumped the gun and you got that.
Alright, let's flip sides real quick. Now I'm going to teach you how to create a listable message. So use examples relevant to the audience, you know. If Mr. Gross goes down south and it's, you know, tight-knit Baptist like he said, and he starts talking about atheism,
They gonna kill me, they gonna cook me.
use transition words. So don't just say, and then another one, next, and it makes somebody want to, I'm not going to say that. Spice everything up, you know, like put some effort into it. Use short, actively worded sentences, you know. Throw in those spicy verbs. Go on to Purdue Owl, look up some nice words. Learn, thesaurus, organizational constructions. So problem solving. Use pro, cons, stuff like that, like charts. Show it up here, a nice visual for everyone to like focus on, so they're not bored out of their mind sitting there looking at a blank screen.
Take all 4 of those, and if you have me for English class and your research project is focusing on caps. To be able to decorate caps at graduation. Here's what's wrong, here's the cause, here's how to fix it. Fits the whole thing. It's current, it relates. Do I have to really use short, actively worded sentences? No. Because I got a topic that's hot that you guys are passionate about. So it's huge. A lot of times it's the topic that really, say abortion somewhere. For the love of God. Go on the reservation, say per cap. You know, I mean, there's inflammatory words as it gets going, but that's good. I like that. That's a neat angle to come in from.
Okay, and then after this, the chapter jumps into effective feedback for some reason. So as a listener, you need to be able to give feedback. So you need to be specific. Don't just say, yeah, I think that was great. Like, let's say I'm critiquing that was great. We need to talk better. Don't be that broad. Like, give them exact examples.
Dude, you were drooling and slurring your words. Drinks less vodka before you speak, please. Okay.
That also ties into being descriptive. So, like, describe what they need to do, and be positive too. Don't just bring them down like, oh, that speech was shit, man.
Descriptive words.
And be constructive. So after you tear them down with your descriptive words, build them back up.
Oreo cookie. Positive. Work on positive.
Right.
Always finish with a positive.
And give them realistic ideas or like realistic feedback. So if I say, yeah, I think that's great, but you should bring in like Lady Gaga with the meat dress behind you dancing while you're giving your speech, that's not realistic, you know? Like,
I like Lady Gaga.
and lastly, be relevant. So if he's talking about like dogs, don't say you should bring in something completely different from a different topic, you know? Keep everything relevant. Everything should be the same.
You're grasping there, but I see the point.
Yeah, like
So next I'm going to talk about some barriers to effective listening and how this can affect you personally.
Like shaved eyebrows.
That
Just
can
check.
be one of them, yes.
I can't get Ice Baby out of my head. God.
Sorry.
Don't apologize.
So a bad messenger can be a great barrier to effective listening.
Example,
One reason,
monotone.
a very monotone person. So if they're talking and there's no differences in their voices, or it's very quiet, it can be very boring to listen to. If they use vocal fillers, so and we need to and
Like.
you know what like I know there's a lot of people that use one person in particular, but I won't say their name. But
Thank you.
we always have at the end of one of our sports seasons, we have the banquet, and the word is and that's all I can focus on. A disheveled appearance, so if you dress how Mason dresses normally to school, that can be very distracting from you listening to what they have to say.
How?
yeah.
How is that distracting?
It just can be.
How? Stop. Oh my God.
Distracting movements, so if they're more focused about how they're moving their arms and what they're doing, if they start dancing while they're talking, you're probably going to focus on the dance more than what they're saying.
Depends on who it is.
Also. Or too vague of a message. So you ever have that person you're talking to, you ask a question, and they kind of beat around the bush and don't really answer their question?
Yeah.
Similar to that, but when they're speaking. So they're talking, but they're really not making any sense. That can also be a big distraction. Some other barriers: lighting, temperature, and furniture can affect how someone listens. And I
Good
would like
call.
to use this classroom as an example. So these chairs over here, you guys might enjoy these chairs. You think they're comfortable, but some other people will not, and they'll focus on how much their butt hurts after sitting on the chair for an hour than what someone is saying in the front of the classroom.
Numb butt should be outlined. Here's my question though. What's the evilness in these two right here especially?
I was gonna get to that. Some
Okay.
things are like too comfortable, and you would fall asleep in class rather than pay attention. So there's kind of you got to find the balance there.
Life sucking right out and you're
Yes.
fighting off sleep.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Some classrooms, the temperatures is a big, let me think of the word, a big barrier, because if it's too cold, you might bring a blanket to class and you might fall asleep. If it's too hot, you're just going to be sweaty and focus on your sweat stains rather than what the person has to say. Another thing is the lighting. So in here we have kind of some bright lights that will keep you awake, but if Mr. Gross were to turn on the softer lights, that might induce you to fall asleep, or with
Who would
no
call
lighting at
those?
all, it might
Why
induce
are
you
those
to fall
on?
asleep.
They're supposed to be.
So if it were just those lights on in the room, it might put you in more of a sleepy kind of mood, and you might not pay attention to what's going on. Another factor is physiological noise. This can also interfere. And physiological noise is anything physical going on with you. So an injury due to sports, an illness, such as like a runny nose, you're going to be more focused on blowing your nose than listening to what's going on. And a psychological noise, this is in your mind, so you could just be in a bad mood or stressing about a test or thinking about what you're going to be doing after school, and that can affect how you're doing.
Fighting off a song.
Right. Here's some bad listening skills that you want to avoid. Selective attention. This is the tendency to pay attention to messages that benefit us. So an example is when you're checking Twitter on your phone and hearing your teacher say this will be on the test, you're probably gonna like perk up and listen to what they have to say.
Unless the teacher's mean and says it after the information.
Right, I was just gonna get to that. If
Sorry.
the teacher says your name, if the teacher just says your name, you're probably gonna hear them and be like, what is going on? So like Mr. Gross always says, a good teacher will say your name and then the question, rather than say the question and then your name, just to get you in trouble. Self-centeredness, this is when you're worried about how you look while listening. So this is kind of similar to what I said about like an illness. So if your nose is running, people might see that and you're worried about how you look.
Your hair.
Or your hair. Or how you're sitting in your chair trying to be comfortable but also look good for your crush sitting across the room. You're obviously not going to be listening to what someone has to say.
Never crossed my mind. Sorry about that.
Response preparation, this is what you were saying.
Okay.
When someone is listening to respond, not really listening to comprehend. So this happens a lot with people and you can kind of tell when it's happening. They're just kind of like sitting there. Sometimes they'll even like say what you're saying just to like get it out of your mouth faster because I want to say what I have to say. Or they'll just be like nodding their head like, yup, can you shut up so I can talk now? Some more bad listening skills. Interrupting.
Huh?
So this is mostly done
What?
unintentionally. Can you please refrain?
Just checking.
This is mostly done unintentionally when we think the speaker is done talking. So it's not always on purpose, but that's kind of with the whole timing thing. Like if you're talking to someone, especially if you can't see them, you're on the phone, and it takes a while for them to respond. You might start talking, and then they start talking.
Yep.
It just kind of keeps going. Distorted listening, I'd like to call this like the telephone game that we used to play, where you would start with a message and you keep telling it, and then it ends up being really bad at the
The
end.
shooting yesterday.
Right.
That
So-
was the worst telephone game I've ever seen happen around here.
Very true. So this is just misinterpreting information that people are telling you, and it can happen in a lot of different situations, from a serious situation like that to rumors being spread about someone. It's very, very vague. And this can result from joining a conversation late, your mind not being focused on the speaker, and any other bad listening skill being involved. There's two types of bad listeners. There's aggressive listening and narcissistic listening. So aggressive, people pay attention to the speaker in order to verbally attack what they have to say. So an example is baiting a person into saying what you want them to. Usually this is where you'll confront someone. And this is like a bad example, but like, let's say I'm talking to Tommy and I'm like, hey Tommy, what's your favorite color? And Tommy says blue, and I was like, oh really, because you told Jessica it was red. And then we just get into an argument. Narcissistic listening is when someone redirects the conversation to be about themselves. So this is a very selfish person normally. So an example is, your friend is talking about how they're stressed, but then you say that you are way more stressed than them, and it's really you that has it worse than they do.
Those are extremely annoying people.
Yes.
I didn't know how to erupt, but I think I could go for that thing.
And I've got it on video. That's awesome. You better go check, because they might have left.
Yeah, they
I thought it was like 9.
8:45 is when I thought they were leaving. You better check. If not, come on back. Oh my God, that's all on video. His face, everything. Remember, Dave, when you get to the point with remember when's when he's there, you got
And
one.
he just took his notes.
All right. You'll be fine here. These slides
We'll
are
give
good.
it-
Okay, Joe.
Does anyone want to give it a shot? No. All right, listening competence. Listening competence at each stage of the listening process. I think. Okay, we're just gonna skip that slide. There's no information.
If that was his, that makes sense. So.
Okay, so developing competence at each stage of listening. Let's say you know the stages of listening already. Oh, here they are. The receiving stage. So you're preparing yourself to listen, preparing yourself to receive.
How do you do that? Hold on, stretch your ear. I mean,
just turn your focus away from whatever is going on.
Shut
Okay.
your phone off, maybe.
I think the
Yeah.
number one thing you can do today to prepare yourself to listen is,
Turn your phone off.
anybody? Shut your phones off.
Yeah.
Close your computer lids. Number one thing you can do. Start right there.
or just eliminate any distractions whatsoever.
No,
So
good
if you have
luck in
a pencil
here.
sitting on your desk, just get rid of the pencil because you know you're going to be messing with it or clicking your
But this
pencil.
room is a distraction. I mean, you could look away and the flag's flying right now, and that could make you
Yeah.
think of the Star Spangled Banner. Oh my God, the Revolution, the damn French, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Or get rid of the damn comfy corner. Like, get that out. It's not a good idea at all. Interpreting stage, this is where you'd be actually interpreting the information. So identify the main and supporting points, or just pick out what really means the most to you, what intrigues you the most.
They left you, didn't they?
No.
Oh.
They don't leave till 9:40.
So where did they go?
I have no idea.
Okay, you can continue where we left.
Gammers. You're back on camera.
What are the recalling stage?
Okay. So, I gotta focus with this.
I totally understand. That was a traumatic experience. You weren't listening to the
so
times,
stressed out.
didn't know.
20 minutes.
That was an awesome thing to do, to just tie into your skit that I know was completely false, and it was part of the skit, because I'm sure you would have listened to the time.
Yeah.
Well done, guys. Well done.
So during the recalling stage, like if you don't understand something, you're gonna want to like rephrase it in your head and like rethink like how it can make sense to you. In the evaluating stage, you want to be familiar with persuasive strategies, personal bias, and perceptual filters.
Do you have a bias, Mr. Shukite? Are you biased towards anything?
Like it depends. Like I don't know. If someone that like didn't like me, like, I don't know.
I bring in a Nazi skinhead with a swastika tattoo on his forehead to talk to us. You
Yeah,
kind of have
he-
a bias as soon as he walks up in front of you.
Yeah, he would probably think differently. And
Can
take
you
in
open your mind
information.
enough to listen?
Probably not. So like,
Okay, that would be considered a bias.
yeah, pretty much. When it is your turn to respond, you should ask questions if you don't understand something, obviously, and then after that, you have to deliver relevant feedback in a conversation. Some listening strategies. I'm still thinking about it.
You have to get in the listening mode here, or a
Yes.
speaking mode. Clear your mind.
Sometimes it's hard to listen, like maybe right now for some of you guys. And some things you can do when you're struggling to listen or learn is like reminding yourself that listening will help you. Like if your teacher is talking about something that's gonna be on a big test, you're gonna want to listen to that so you don't fail. You know. You can also use like rhymes, like righty tighty lefty loosey. That helps people.
Oh my God, yeah, great example.
Yeah, like I don't know any other ones, but you can make your own.
You need to get out there more, dude.
Visualizing, like just visualizing.
It's ironic you say that, and hardly anybody uses it in persuasive speeches for me, but we're getting there.
Taking notes in like more of a class setting, like if you're talking to someone, you don't want to like start taking notes.
Can you imagine being in the hallway having a conversation with somebody, pull out your notepad, start taking notes? You know how that works out.
But in more of a classroom setting, taking notes helps the speaker because they know you're paying attention and they want to keep teaching you, and it
Or
just
they
helps.
wonder what you're writing about, and then they walk by as a bunch of doodles.
Well, if you take good notes, I guess, and then it'll help you remember because you're like writing stuff down. I'm excited.
Okie doke.